Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. It sounds in a way kind of like part of what you're saying is that the almost the tools and the ways of thinking and asking and relating that, you know, religious life may can offer people are more important than any sort of specific content of sort of religious traditions and what they have to say directly about like environmental um, you know, protecting the earth or whatever. Is that kind of does that feel like right based on what you're expressing kind of?
Well, I mean, for members of religious traditions, for people who self-identify with religious traditions, they have thousands of years of resources to draw on, right? But what I'm not seeing is people flocking to any one of these traditions specifically in numbers and consistently or over the long term, right? Like I like to joke with my students that they will most certainly go through a Buddhist phase before they end their university careers. And, some of them will become sincere Buddhists. And obviously that's beautiful and perfectly fine. The joke is that, the Western imagination is a bit enamored with exotic Orientalist kinds of being in the world. But it doesn't necessarily always last very long. And so that's why it's a joke, right? It's like, oh, well, you'll go through the Buddhist phase. But again, it's not to poke fun at people who convert to traditions. I'm just not seeing a ton of that, right? Like the answers that institutions provide are not, still a disconnect. There's a bit of, like I say, sometimes there's a surface tension. If you go to a Catholic mass, it's so boring on the surface, right? But if you look around, there's a couple of people who are immersed, right? They have let themselves sink into the mysteries of those symbols. But sometimes the language, right, of feudal theology, right? Oh Lord, and masculine pronouns, you know, Father, God, can really be a barrier for some people to allow themselves to sink in to those symbols because that's all they are. They're symbols. And so on the one hand, right, the traditions have to do some bridging. They have to develop theologies that are alive and not just inclusive in a politically correct kind of way, but like that are alive, that are responding to the world that we live in, right? And you don't have to check your Darwinism or your expanding cosmos at the door when you go through the temple or the church, right? And there's so many cool voices like that, right? Do I get extra points if I say Thomas Berry, right? Because Mary Evelyn Tucker would interject that this is an important voice. Oh, really? Tell us about Thomas Berry. Who is that? No, I'm just kidding. But Teilhard and Thomas Berry and right, all of the evolutionary writers and theologians that have taken on the mantle of that. Lots of monks and nuns and sisters and Miriam McGillis and Elizabeth Johnson and Sally McFaig, right? So there's tons of resources in the traditions. And that's the brilliance of Mary Evelyn Tucker and John Grimm's whole career is like shining a light on all of these people doing cool connections within the traditions. And I tried to do that in Mormonism on as a liberal Mormon, a progressive Mormon, even an anarchist Mormon at one point, right? We created a Mormon worker newspaper because we wanted to try to bridge Mormon communalism with Christian anarchism, Tolstoyan approaches, which was really fun for a while. But then, you just find yourself farther and farther outside of the the list of reasons why your Mormon starts shrinking until you still can't, or you can no longer use it in good conscience. And that happens to a lot of people in different religions. So I wrote an article about Mormon eco-theology that still gets cited every now and then on Google Scholar. And so that was like part of my wrestle. But then at Yale, I really discovered the sophistication of the Trinitarian theology. I found it very compelling. Mormons think it's kind of superstitious to think God is three in one, but I found it quite compelling. And so I was drawn to the Anglican and Catholic expressions. Institutionally, Anglicanism has a lot going for it because of it's more inclusive, women priests and gay marriage. But sacramentally, the Roman Catholics have this reverence that you really can't find in Protestant traditions. So I was drawn to those traditions. And, if I was really pressed, I guess you would say I'm a small C Catholic, right? I really love the Franciscans and the Benedictines and their approach to ecology and land. And I refuse to choose between them. I don't know why, but some Catholics seem to think you have to be one or the other. And I think it's an important, they both have really important strengths. But I just have such a hard time consistently identifying with folks in the parish Catholic communities and the broader global communities and the Vatican politics and corruption. And though I do have quite a strong affection for Pope Francis. Yeah.
Can I just ask you to
Uh,
expand a little bit on sort of what you feel so drawn to about like in both within Franciscan and Benedictine um,
yeah.
theologies or whatever, like kind of what feels really important to you within each of those?
Well, in